Today's guest is Pablo Alejandro, a Uruguayan-born singer known as the Gentleman of Bachata, whose music blends the romance of bachata with the soul of tango, bringing both passion and elegance to this genre.
Welcome, Pablo, to the Artist Conversation.
How are you guys? Thank you very much for having me. What a pleasure.
Pretty good, pretty good. We looked at your stuff and we were like, yeah, we need to call him. So much work you've done, and you're so famous. So we thought it'll be amazing to talk to you. I just introduced you, Pablo, and we talked about the your origin and roots. So I want to start with that. I'm saying it right? Bachata.
Yeah, that is perfect. Perfectly, man. Perfectly
Okay,
said.
okay. So you've said that, but okay. So you've said that talking about the origin and roots. You've said that in some of the things I saw that bachata and tango spoke to you from an early age. So, what was it about those two worlds that felt so deeply and connected to your own heart?
Sure, definitely. Well, it's funny how angels from the top are always looking up for us. And in this case, my grandmother, she's always looking up from the top.
Hmm.
She used to be a professional tango singer in Uruguay before I moved into Miami. So I remember the little that I remember when I was little, I used to go with her to the shows, to the TV channels, and seeing her, perform and everything. And it was amazing. So when I moved in here in years ago, my starting was also as a second vocalist, and choreographer of different merengue bands. Merengue is kind of tropical music, until I got the opportunity in 2004 to record my first album. That's when I back then 2004
Got
it
it.
was the fusion wasn't that much, so it was more of what it was called a traditional bachata. But one of the songs of that album that I recorded, I mixed it with a little bit in the beginning of the song with a famous tango called La Comparsita, and that kind of catch
Hmm.
the eye throughout the years later on. And then I started developing album after album, to mix always bachata with tango.
Got it. Got it. And I think I missed. But were you in the U.S. already, or were you
In Miami. Yeah, I live
at
in
the time?
Miami.
Are you in Miami? Miami. Yeah, yeah.
Miami, yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah,
Gotcha. So it's amazing. Like it. So it started at home, right? It started with your grandma, and so it's in the family.
definitely.
Which is amazing. So anyone other than the grandma, in your family, like is into music and kind of inspired you?
My mom sings really, 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 really good, really nice, but she had never got into professionally, but she's a really, really good singer as well. So basically it comes from mom and grandma.
Got it, got it. And this is so good. I've never talked to. I mean, I listen to a lot of different kinds of music. I'm a vocalist too, and I listen to a lot of different. Like I was in Brazil. Like when I went to Brazil, I was listening to a lot of their music. I'm always interested in living in Southern California. There's so much Spanish influence over here too, right? Just like Miami. For our viewers, for people who are listening, can you tell them a little bit about bachata and tango and the art forms and where they are coming from and all that?
Sure. Bachata was born in the Dominican Republic. I'm from Uruguay, like you said at the beginning. So I'm the first Uruguayan that performs this type of music. And what they have nominated me as I'm sorry, as a bachata pioneer, bachata tango pioneer. I'm sorry. So that's how we started everything.
Hmm.
Back in the years in Dominican Republic, bachata was very discriminated. And then throughout the years finally
Really?
became internationally known. So nowadays it's amazing because, of course, I'm not the only bachata singer. There's so many talented out there, but bachata has crossed so many frontiers. You listen to bachata everywhere. Japan, Korea, even in India. Of what I've heard, they
Hmm.
have Congress for bachata. Everywhere. Brazil, like we have a huge community from Brazil as well that are followers in Instagram. So it's amazing how throughout the years bachata became very popular and known.
Wow, that's amazing. And you said there's a lot more people who are doing this art form now. There are a lot of people who are following. Is it mostly like around the world, or since you live in Miami, I'm assuming there's a lot of folks in Miami too?
Yeah, yeah. I have seen a lot of colleagues that are into bachata, like traditional or what is called bachata sensual, which is it's a kind of the similar style, which is what most of the Congress, out there in different countries, they use that form as, but it's amazing how, well, most of the people know already Romeo Santos, which came from Grupo Aventura, which is a famous one, the king of bachata, that's what they call him. And then they have Prince Royce. Then you have El Chaval de la Bachata, Frank Reyes, so many of them, they're all on Dominicans, of course, and and that I have the pleasure to, I mean, not to collaborate, but of course to see in person and chat with them in person. And they were really like, wow, man, it's different. What you do is different. You're from Uruguay, the great idea to create your
Yeah,
identity of mixing it with tango. It tells exactly where you're coming from. So to me, that was a blessing coming from the top.
yeah,
Yeah.
amazing, amazing,
Yeah.
pretty cool.
That's really interesting. Like I know, although you were born in Uruguay, bachata became such a powerful part of your artistic identity. So, was there
Definitely.
any a moment when you realized this wasn't just music you loved; it was a music you were meant to live through?
That's a great question, my friend, because when I first started doing music, the reality I didn't understand which places they can take you. And of course, I didn't understand that it's a business as well, as the both of you know. So back in 2004, when I started doing my
Mhm.
first album, which it was a part done recorded here in Miami, and the other part in Dominican Republic, and the JLG Studios, which Juan Luis Guerra is one of the famous ones. Uh, to me, everything was like, oh my God, the fans, the traveling, the hotels, the bodyguards, this and that, because I was signed with Universal at that time. There were different days back
Hmm.
then, based on what it is right now. And then as I started realizing that it's not just getting on the stage, singing, trying to look good, try to, vocalize great, and it's connect with the public, and that's when I realized that that's the main thing in my life, connecting with the public, and like you said, and to be honest with you, I wasn't thinking back then. And now when I look back, almost 22 years of career, it's like, wow, it's incredible how my life
Wow.
changed in a good sense, of doing this type of music, which is not normally born in my country.
Understood.
That that is so amazing. I mean, and you've been doing it for 22 years. That is so amazing that you've been doing music for so long. I mean, there's so you do you feel blessed a lot of times? I'm sure you do, right? Like you're able to do that.
I think the blessing comes not only from above, also from when you see the results based on your efforts. Because one of the things that I keep
Hmm.
repeating in all my Spanish interviews is the reality. Thanks to you guys, which is media, and to the followers, that's how we become known. You know, that's one of the things that we have to realize. And not,
Right.
with all
Right.
my respect, not a lot of artists realize that, and you have to be grateful for that. Just the fact that like right
Absolutely.
now, just to give you a perfect idea, to me, this is uh, unbelievable that San Diego in India comes together in an interview that I've been giving an interview for my first time in my life in India, which is, and I have so many people have commented, I'm from India, I love bachata, and now we're here. So I think that's a connection that you have with people. And to me, that's a blessing.
Yeah.
To me, that's a blessing. It's funny because I was telling my wife and my kids, and I said, I want to have an interview. Oh, where is it? Can I be live? No, it's kind of Zoom and stuff like that. "Oh, from where? I said, from India." She goes, "What?" And the first thing that I said to my wife is, babe, this is amazing how someone can be so respectful and so give me the honor of waking up so early in the morning to give me an interview. So I thank you very much. I thank you for that.
No,
Oh,
no.
uh,
The pleasure is all ours. Trust me, the pleasure is all ours. I mean, you deserve it. Your music deserves it. Your voice deserves it. And talking about connecting, San Diego, Mumbai, India, and Miami, Florida. Just to let you know that we've just started this, and the hope is to kind of grow this. But we've been connecting to so many musicians, and we also will get other artists from different art forms. Like we
Mhm.
already did a photographer who's not released yet, and we will be doing some animation, VFX artists, and everything in the coming episodes too. But you know, we had like people from, correct me if I'm wrong, Suraj, we had someone from
Yeah.
Croatia, we had
Yeah.
someone from Russia, we had people from all over the place. Like, so far it's so amazing to talk to these people. And we had the gentleman who's amazing. He's like a maestro. He's from Milan, Italy. And
Wow.
it's just so amazing to talk to these people. And yeah.
I
Just
think
amazing to kind of
this
connect with
new
people.
that's one of the things that sometimes you have to realize. I know we all going back to COVID. All of us got really scared when COVID hit, but if you think about it, back in the day was everything was in person. So everything came up, Zoom came up, how many other platforms. So now you get the possibility of doing this interviews, through Zoom, through Google Meet, or whatever it is, which back in the day
Hmm.
was okay, sure, let me know when you're in town and I get you an interview. So we as an artist too have grown a lot,
Yeah.
for thanks to that.
You'll be, to add to that, talking about COVID and the whole thing, just to give you a little, a taste of what, like me and Suraj over here, like I've sang on a lot of his songs, and I live here and he lives in Mumbai, and at the time, because I think COVID taught all our artists, like all the artist community or whoever, right? How to make the most of what you have, right? So with the help of one of our common friends, Franco, he's a sound engineer. I have a lot of equipment at home, so figured out like, okay, so Zoom was also very new at the time, and there was a lag and everything. So he kind of helped me figure out a way where I was literally standing here and recording his song. Okay. And he was literally like this on Zoom, telling me in real time, very little lag, almost nothing. So I was singing the song, I would play it, I would hit record, and he could hear me singing in real time. Maybe there's a lag here and there, and we've recorded the whole EP like that. And I've recorded a whole bunch of other songs with my current band over here in Los Angeles too. I mean, it's just amazing that what
Hmm.
technology, where we've come from. I mean, it's like I look at it this way, right? It's like COVID closed a lot of doors, but it also opened a lot of other avenues.
Definitely,
I
no
mean,
doubt,
that's
no
one way to
doubt.
think of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
that's cool.
it took a lot of things from us, like the stage and stuff like that, the one-on-one with the people at the time. But it gave me, me personally, it gave me a lot of good stuff. To be
Mhm.
honest with you, at that time I was working with a PR in Mexico, and we were doing a lot of stuff in person. We went to Bolivia, blah blah. We came back, and I said, you know what? I mean, the news channels had to talk about something else just besides COVID. I said to her, so let's try reaching out, and we started reaching out, and I remember every other day we had probably 2 or 3 interviews, per day, not exaggerating, to be honest with you, and that's how I got my name out there even bigger, into other audiences, so that's a
Wow,
blessing.
that's amazing. That's amazing. I want to, hello, I want to talk to you about, finding your voice, right? Or finding a voice. Growing up in Miami, you were surrounded by so many different Latin rhythms, right? I mean, Miami is like that melting pot for the Latin culture, right? So how did that environment shape, yeah, so how did that environment shape the artist you were becoming?
It's funny because in Uruguay, Argentina, Chile, Peru, some of the South America countries, people used to love to listen to Spanish rock. So I came into Miami. I think I was 14 years old, if I'm not mistaken, and my hair was up to here. You know, when I moved into that, and yeah, with my mom and my grandmother. I remember back in the day, I had a bunch of posters on my wall for Skid Row, Guns N' Roses, Metallica, Aerosmith, Van Halen. You can name it. You can name it, right? Now that you mentioned that
Yeah.
about the whole mix. So one day a friend of mine happens to be Dominican. He moved now to New York years ago. Said, hey, let's go to the club. And I go, why? No, there's gonna have to be this band playing over. They play merengue. Well, man, thanks, but no thanks. No, trust me, man. Let's go, whatever. So I said, all right, let's go. when I saw that huge band playing, which it's called Los Hermanos Rosario, it's a huge, huge band that has been known for many years in Dominican Republic. 30 musicians, and at that time there were the two sisters and the four brothers singing together in the band. When that band started playing live
Mhm.
merengue, I said, "Oh my God, what
Mhm.
is that?" And he was like, I told you." I'm not exaggerating. Next day I got home, booked my barber, cut my
Mhm.
hair, you know, and I started buying VHS back then, of how to dance merengue. How to dance merengue, and I'll put the VHS on and start looking at it. And I go, okay. So I started like developing my own way of doing choreographies, for merengue. Then salsa
Mm.
started becoming trending. Then I started teaching salsa with some of the groups down here in Miami. I learned, of course, to get to a point before that, and that's how it started. And that's how then when one of the groups in 1990 had moved from Dominican Republic to Miami, it was called El Clan de la Furia, very known group in South America and Central America. And they said, oh, they're doing an audition. They want to find somebody that can do second vocals and, knows how to dance. And I said, let me do it. So I tried out. I made it. Okay, I made it.
Mhm.
And then, of course, we started traveling. So that was the initial kick for me to learn how to not to feel pressure in front of the public, because it's a different thing when you're a dancer, and do dance at the clubs versus when you are dancing in front of the public. Then that group, that group got dissolved. The producer, which was the main singer, started producing again because he's very known. And then they had another group called Bon Bon. Remember, so there were one guy, and then they needed two other singers. So I tried for that one. I got in as well.
Got it.
So that one, it was amazing, And then until, of course, in 2004, I got the blessing of recording my first album.
That's
Wow,
amazing. Awesome.
that's
They're really, really cool. What a journey.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, talking about the one thing you just said, the groups and the collaboration part of the music fraternity. No, you begin in a groups before stepping into your own solo career. So, what did performing with others teach you before you were already ready to stand on your own?
A lot. Discipline it was the main thing because we had different timings for
Mhm.
rehearsals, so I had to be on time. The
Hmm.
manager of the group at the time was very serious, and I'm always being always on point. Well, today I was 2 minutes late because I logged in another link. But well, it's like amazing how I love the whole thing of preparation. Okay, these are the steps that we're gonna do. The choreographer
Mhm.
was there teaching us, so that kind of gave me a lot of discipline, and it got me
Mm.
prepared for the next step. And as a matter of fact, the main guy of that group, that went back to producing because he was also a producer, he's the one that told me, listen, you should become a soloist. And I said, oh, I'm not sure, I think I feel comfortable with this. But yeah, but you always gonna be, the second vocal, the third vocal, it's better, trust me. You just try and see what happens, and of course, I thank him for that.
Very cool. Very cool. Talking about the discipline, it just reminded me of we had a on the show. It's not released. Her thing is not released yet, but we had a very good musician, Grammy-winning artist, and guitar player, Janet, and she was talking about one of the band members that invited her from one of the famous bands, Fleetwood Mac, Lindsay Buckingham, I think is the last name, and to for her to be playing in his
Hmm.
band, and she was telling us like this incident of like he would be so particular about if you played something wrong, he would sit you down and talk to you about it. And but then she was like, same thing. She's like, that taught me discipline, and that taught me, and there's so many stories like that from other artists. Like, I know Suraj, you were telling me about some man, which was a little extreme, I thought, but you were telling me about someone in India who would have a string orchestra, and he would know his ear was so trained that he would know from the
Yeah,
control room that what was that? He would know exactly like what if someone's violin
yeah,
is not tuned or something, right?
Wow.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's a true
that is
musician.
that is next level.
Oh, no,
Yeah,
definitely,
that's a
definitely.
little next level.
Yeah, and in my case, it helped me out through the years. And I always see this. I'm very organized. I'm very OCD, which is good and is bad sometimes. But
Yeah,
everything that I've just to give you something simple might be for some other people. I have my team in Mexico that takes care of my
yeah,
social media, and I have my team here that takes care, of course, anything that has to do with press or stuff like that. And then I have, of course, whoever negotiates the cost, and I have my producer. Small team, but everybody wears the same jersey, like I always said. And the first thing I said, I don't care who writes on Instagram, English or Spanish or whoever, even if it is a fan that says, "Oh, Pablo, I like your music." If you see that message, I want you to take a minute. If I see it, I will respond it. I don't mind. I love being involved. And said, thank you for contacting us, Pablo's page. We will make sure he gets your message. Same thing when the brands send an email for a proposal. Not all proposals on the table are something that we can agree to it, but at least always have that, you know, uh, 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 respect for each other. I think I always believe that timing is something that to me is very valuable. And I would say, take your time, respond. Yeah, we all get, you guys get, and we all get a bunch of junk emails that unfortunately that you don't even respond. But
yeah.
anyone that comes across for anything, oh, I want an interview, or I wonder how much is the cost for a show, or whatever, even if it doesn't work out, you always respond, and you have to be very respectful because that other person deserves your respect because of spending valuable time.
Yep, yep.
Understood.
100%.
I like I actually like this part. Like it's a very rare. Like I remember, I'm still growing in my own career, but when I started writing the my original music around 13 years ago, so when I used to send, or you can say, the part we send our stuff to recording labels and all the artist managers and all the stuff. So I used to have this thing with me, like why a simple message to, okay, we received it, okay, we will let you know. Simple message, a simple act of kindness. Like why what's the wrong with the people, why they can't just reply in a one small message that we received it? And I found it very you can say heartwarming that you have this kind of mindset to even
Yeah,
reply to a small any fans of yours that we received your message and Pablo will surely see it. It's really
yeah.
great. We loved it.
That is
This ad.
super professional and goes to show that you care, and you kind of know that the fans is what make an artist, right? At the end of the day.
And you guys too. Hey, you never know. Maybe next thing become
But
famous in
yeah,
San Diego and India, thanks to you guys. You never know. Thanks to this interview.
well, if you ever come down to San Diego to perform, let me know. I would love to
Of
attend
course. Of course. Yeah, and you still see that
if you're
nowadays,
traveling.
unfortunately. Of course, and you still see that nowadays because besides the point that I get reached out, my team also reach out, to different people. And you cannot imagine, I would
Mm.
say the percentages of response are like, I would say like a 5%. And it is
Mm.
and they're not reaching out to ask, hey, listen, I want you to become my sponsor. No, normal. If there's anything we can do, any collabs or whatever, because I was tell my team, listen, asking for a sponsorship, unfortunately, is like asking for money, soliciting. We all know that, unless there's something else that comes in mind. Okay, perfect. I want to become your sponsor, but this is a contract that we have, and you have to do this for me. And, we're going to go 50-50 on the earnings. As a different story because, music is a business. But I would say to myself, it's so ungrateful for people, not to understand that. Also, when someone tells you, hey, listen, let's meet up tomorrow, 9:30 p.m. Okay, perfect. And then I always have my team, or if it is something personal to me, follow up earlier in the morning, and in the afternoon. Listen, we are set for that time, right? Sure. But if something comes up, which it could happen to anybody, you have to let the other party know, listen,
Hmm.
this happened, can we reschedule? Can we
Absolutely,
talk
100%.
tomorrow? Or worst comes to worst, if it's an emergency,
Hmm.
next day you excuse yourself. Listen, I've been through that. You don't see that anymore, unfortunately, man. It's
Yeah,
the lack of professionalism,
yeah.
and to another human being has been lost, I would say, years ago, unfortunately.
Yeah, we've had that happen to us too. But anyway, we can keep talking about that all night. We're moving on,
Yeah.
but I want to talk to you more about the music. Your music blends bachata with tango in a way that it feels very personal when I was listening to it. So, how did you come to trust that this fusion, if I may call it that, wasn't just different, but truly yours, like your sound?
Originally because on Uruguay I used to listen a lot of tango, and then the lyrics for tango, I would say tango, bachata, vallenato, bolero,
Mhm.
the words to it, the lyrics to it, I'm sorry, are pretty much go the same route, you know, unfaithful, somebody's
Mm.
been unfaithful, Aubrey, you broke my heart, stuff like that. So that kind of, tango, sensuality, bachata is also very sensual as well. So, and that combined with my personality as well, because I consider myself very sentimental, very romantic as well. So I said, it has to be
Mhm.
that connection, not just, oh, okay, it sounds great from my point of view. I'm not a producer, of course. Oh my God, to my ears, it sounds amazing. That blending of the bandoneon with the guitars, but it goes beyond that. It has to either, of course, it has to leave a positive message. That's what I always feel about, but it has to also connect with me as an artist. So that's an amazing question that you mentioned. It's not just, okay, I'm doing it because it worked. Hey guys, it worked. It got me to where I am right now. People like, so
Mhm.
let's keep doing it. No, no, and I'm always looking for those little details because I'm very picky. So yeah, definitely connects with me as well as with my personality. So I think it goes good with the gentleman of bachata.
Mhm. Interesting. I'm glad. I'm so glad you think of it that way. And what you just said resonated so much with me. It's like, oh, let's just do it because it works. You have to truly like it and come. It has to come from inside and within. Like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to say. This is how I want to project. And my audience to be knowing me for the kind of art form. Like, and I'm delivering over here. So that's amazing. That's really cool.
Thanks.
Really? No, talking about your breakthroughs in your career, probably if I'm right, the first breakthrough of your career was your first album, Crossing Borders, which opened international doors for you. So when that started happening, did it feel like a dream unfolding, or did it come with a pressure to prove yourself even more?
It came, you know what? It's a great question, man. You guys are good, man. It is a great question because honestly, uh, being
Mhm,
signed with Universal distribution, all the stuff that went through, like I said before at the beginning, okay, things are gonna work out. Why? Because back then, how it was. You sign the big contract, they invest all the money. You're gonna get yourself out there. When I asked for my release in
mhm,
2005, because that's when I realized some things happened, that I don't want to say. Uh, and then I go in independent. That's when I released the only song that I had. Of course, what I did is I reached out to the attorneys and I said, listen, I want to come up with the same album, but under the name of my company, which is PA, Pablo Alejandro Entertainment Inc. I said, do you guys allow me to? Sure, of course. Okay, I want guys to send me a letter saying you guys allow me to do so to make sure once because back then you used to print CDs. When I printed my batch of CDs, I'm not going to get in trouble if I start selling them. Okay. So I grabbed a song that I have mixed with tango and I sent it out to a lot of DJs in Italy, especially started with Italy. And it became trending. It
Mhm.
became trending big time, So to me, I felt the pressure, like you said, because okay, what I'm gonna do now? It's different when you have a team backing you up, and the only thing you have to do is try to dress nice, sing good, be ready for it to be called. You have your agendas, you get your agendas within time, you know, everything paid. So now it's a different story. Now it's me, just me, myself, and I. So the pressure was there, but it kind of helped me out
Mhm.
so much when I sent it out to Europe and people's reaction was amazing. I mean, I remember my first touring was I spent Christmas and New Year's, outside my house for the first time. To me, it was crazy. So we had uh, 5 gigs and 5 shows in Italy, which are between Lecce, Milano,
wow.
and Brindisi. And we have, I'm not lying to you, I have like 8 to 9 shows, I believe, in Germany, Frankfurt, Dortmund, Hanover. It was crazy. It was crazy, and because back then they used to play your music at the club, you know. So, and to my surprise, and more in Germany, in Italy they loved it, of course, but in Germany, to my surprise, was that on my head I was saying, okay, perfect. The song that I've been promoting, I'm gonna leave that for last. that I only had one album, which it had 10 songs. Out of the 10 songs, 11, I'm sorry. Out of the 11 songs, one was a remix for that song that I mixed with tango. Another one was a feature in one other with a female. So in reality, I had 9 songs, So I said, okay, I'm gonna do like 4 songs on one set, and then I do the rest, whatever. So my first show, it was packed. It was packed, packed. And what they used to do back then, if you were performing with the track, not with the musicians, is you will perform in the middle of the stage, with people, the dancing stage. So you were all surrounded by people, you
Hmm.
know. So I said, okay, let me
Oh,
start with
surrounded.
the
Oh, wow.
yeah, yeah. Let me
Wow.
let me just let me just start with the first song, and I started singing the first song, and everybody started singing along with me. My heart, I never forget that,
Wow.
started beating so fast. And that continued to happen song after song. And then when I got to the duet song, I said, I have this song that I want to perform. So I want to ask the ladies, if your girls know it, to do the part for the girl, and I'll do the part and people were singing to it. So it's like, I mean, I
Mm.
remember that when I finished my first set of 4 songs, I went back to the restroom room, whatever, sitting there, and I started crying. Just started crying and crying and crying, and said, I can't believe it. And I was just thinking, okay, fine. Mi Estrella, Mi Lucero, which was a promotional song. Of course, people are gonna sing it along because it's a song that I've been burning everywhere pretty much. They knew all the songs. It was amazing. And people would come back and say, for example, I had a couple that said, from Argentina, they say in Spanish to me and say, you know what? I definitely love my wife. And I go, why? We jump in the train 5 hours just to come and see you. And I said, oh my God, you know what? I
Mm.
have to buy you. I
Wow.
had to, I mean, I'm not a big drinker, I said, but I had to buy you a drink, you and your wife. So I buy them a drink. We sit down, we talked about it and stuff like that. So we got a little one-on-one. And it's amazing, man. It was pressure. Yeah, there was a lot of pressure at the beginning, but then kind of everything started ease down when I saw the contest behind it. When I saw that pretty much people, it worked. My idea worked, basically.
Amazing,
That's good.
man. Amazing. Yeah, what a feeling, right? What a feeling
Uh,
when
th-
people are kind of, totally into it and kind of knowing your songs and singing with you. And especially in this situation, you're surrounded, you know, um, surrounded by them.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
In
it was
fact, you know
great.
what? Funnily enough, when you just said that, it reminded me of something. I'm doing a small event 2 days in a row in San Diego at Balboa Theater, which is a big, huge thing in San Diego, and it's more like it's a speaking event. But I'm singing.
Okay.
I'm one of the speakers, but I'm also singing small sections of songs introducing other speakers as they go from one story to another. And that theater is like this, it's no mics, there's nothing allowed, because it's more like for booked for plays, so you have to really
Okay.
project your voice and you really have to be, yeah, yeah. But that theater, I went there, it's called the Globe Theater, and it's all people sitting in front of you on top like this and all like this.
Wow.
So I'm going to be in the middle.
That's gonna be amazing. That's gonna connect. You're gonna connect. That's when you really connect with the public.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So it's gonna be fun. Although this is a sit down event, it's like no one's gonna be dancing. It's a very little intense
yeah.
event, but just kind of remind me of like, oh, around you, I'm gonna be doing that.
Yeah. You have to tell me
That's
all
good.
about it. You gotta tell me
Uh,
all
you know,
about it. That experience is gonna be good.
Yeah, yeah.
sure. Moving ahead, Pablo, talking about the reinvention part of the artist career. You took a break from a music in 2008 and later returned to it. So, what brought you back? And did you return as the same artist or as a different man?
Man, it was amazing because I was traveling so much, and I said, okay, I need to take a break. You know, to get back to my roots in other aspects. I became a businessman and what it calls called. I was being a real estate paralegal. So I kind of joined, who was my boss back then. I joined him as an associate for the firm, because I wanted to stop doing music. Nothing had happened to me bad, thank God. But I said, you know what? I want to go back to and see how I feel going back. Being in the office. Even though it was my business as well, and it still is until today. But now, of course, I have people running it. Uh, and and it kind of helped me out because it cleared my mind, for a lot of traveling, for a lot of different stuff. And I feel that I came back stronger Because I remember then, of course, years went by. In 2010, I got married, and then I was talking to my wife, and she asked me that question, hey, what happened? Because when before I met you, I know you were into music. And I said, oh, I kind of took a break because I wanted to kind of establish my business because the music business is like a roller coaster, and a lot of things can happen. You can either get tired of traveling, I'm just tired for this, or God forbid something happens. And then what's your plan B? Unless you become huge in life, like Bad Bunny, all right, and you don't have to worry, and your kids don't have to worry, and their
Yeah.
kids don't have to worry. So if not, it's good. Okay, you make your money, you invest your money however you want to do it. I mean, but I also want to have my business in case me one day I said, oh, you know what, it's been great, it's been amazing. I'm just gonna slow down, do it once in a while, and dedicate myself to my business because I'm very hands on with everything, So, but I think no, I definitely came back very strong.
Hmm. That is amazing, and it's really nice that you know, especially in today's world, and like you said, unless you are like super big, and then you've made sure that you've not blown all the money because some super big people also
Yeah,
blow everything and then they're back to where they are. I mean, we've seen that with ball players and so many
yeah.
other things, right? Not only musicians, but it's nice that you were also thinking of, yeah, like, okay, what's my plan B? Can I have this in place first so that if something, because we know both me and Suraj, we know some people, you'll be surprised, even in today's day and age, they want to give up their jobs and they want to give up their career and be like, oh, just because they went, in fact, without naming someone, we met someone recently and we're like, are you kidding me? I mean, you're making good money, everything's happening. Just because someone said, wow, great, you're nice and this and that, and they 15 people or 50 or 200 people, who cares, said that. I'm like, but you know,
Yeah.
be careful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be
Yeah.
careful. In fact, I know someone who had a great job in tech in California, right? I work in tech too, and
Mhm.
had a great job. Graduated from Penn State.
Oh,
Masters in computer science. Had a great job. Left everything um, and wanted to do music, and not even that great. And I'm like, what? Come on. You're not even like, you know, I don't know how people need to realize who they are sometimes, I feel,
I mean, it's always great to dream.
because
I
there's a
still
lot
do
of
it.
luck.
Yeah, and it's great to dream. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of people. Even there's people that are doing what they don't want to do, and because they want to do something else. Always in your life, and never had fought
Uh-huh.
for it or had never pursued it. But at the same time, it's always good to dream with your feet on the floor. It's like, okay, what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
Yes.
Never give up on your dreams, follow your dreams. But like you said rightly, what is that plan B? I think people should also kind of have that, which some people don't. They
Yeah,
just leave
especially
everything
when you
and
want to
just
have
do
a
it.
family. If you have a family, don't get me wrong. If you're still living with mom and dad, you're young, you're exploring out there. It's fine. It's fine. I mean, because mom and dad are always gonna be there for you. But as the years go by, you want to have a family, or you have in my way, I have 4 kids and 3 dogs. So, I had to think about that. I had to think about them as well.
Of course,
And
of course.
so a lot of people, if you're single, still living at the house on their mom's and dad roof, and then it's fine for you to explore and see where it goes. But you're gonna get to a certain age in which you're gonna be like, okay, okay, because the reality is with
Yeah.
music, like we
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you're independent, you have to invest. So the money comes from where? Okay, I have a regular job, whatever I do, so I'm investing little by little in the music until somebody discovers you, or maybe I have become the greatest just by investing little by little in my career. Now I don't have to worry about anybody investing in myself.
Uh-huh. Right, right. That's so true. You know, moving ahead, Pablo, I wanted to talk to you about a couple of things. Um, you know, let me ask you two things. Let me quickly ask you about um, how you returned after the pandemic, blending bachata with tango in songs like Lora Mi Alma, right? Um, so what was that moment? Why did that moment call you back to the sound that first defined you? What was it like called you back, especially in that song?
That's that when you work with a team that has great ideas and always trying to do something different. I remember I was doing so many interviews, uh, in the middle of the pandemic, which was a blessing because a lot of people more people started following me and stuff like that. But I enjoy that, of course, like every other artist. I enjoy the fact of doing lives, singing, with the tracks, reading the comments. We all went through that. But I was like, man, I'm still
Hmm.
missing. So I was talking to my producer, and he goes, "Hey, I thought about you the other day." And I go, "Why? What happened?" At that time, his son was, I think, 2026 years ago. So yeah, he was still little. He says, my son started singing the song that you wrote one day. Remember, "You Era Mi Alma"? And I go, "Yeah, yeah. What happened to the song?" "No, it's there. Why? What if we record it?" And I said, "Man,
Mm,
we had just one little issue." He goes, "What?" "I had to ask permission." I said, "What do you mean? Didn't you write the song?" "Yeah, but I
okay.
had to ask permission to my wife because she's freaking out in the middle of the pandemic. So for me to, get in the car, go to the studio, we were both laughing. He goes, and I go, "No, no, she's gonna be fine." I said, "But of course, so I went to a studio, we recorded, and I remember that the dancers that had participated on the video clip, everything timing wise was perfectly. They had recorded their part in Italy. I recorded my part here in Miami.
Hmm.
And as soon as they finished, and I'm
Hmm.
not lying to you guys, as soon as they finished recording, they closed all the frontiers in Italy. And people were, so I was
Ah,
lucky.
Oh,
That was lucky. I was lucky, if I would have waited like 2 more days, of course it will still come out, but I had to wait a little bit longer. So I
yeah,
recorded the
yeah,
70. So then I
yeah,
decided to
yeah.
record it here in Miami to record, of course, my part in Miami, and also with percussions and stuff like that. And then, I launched it, and as a matter of fact, I think that was the last song that I needed to finish the album, Romantico, and I launched it in the middle of the pandemic,
Hmm.
and then things started to get little by little, back to normal, with the normal distances and stuff like that. So, so yeah, but that phone call with my producer helped me a lot, and I kind of went back and I said, wow, man, I
Oh,
definitely needed that.
got it.
that's
Amazing.
interesting. Pablo, uh, as we artists say, we leave our legacy, our music after we left this world. So, talking about your legacy, after all these years, your albums and stage is shared with a legendary artist. What do you hope people feel most when they hear Pablo Alejandro? The romance, the passion, the story, or something else entirely?
I also want to try it and see they can see that behind Pablo Alejandro Lopez, which is my real name, there's
Mm,
also a human being like they are,
Okay.
that
okay.
I'm also a fan as well. And I'm a fan of a bunch of artists. That if I ever see them in person, I'd be
Okay.
like, hey, give me a break, let me breathe. I'm a little bit nervous, because that's normal. And I want them to realize that,
Yeah.
that I'm also a human being like them. The only difference between them and me is that I have chosen to be on stage. They probably are, worked in an office or they're doctors or whatever. But in reality, we're both equal. We're both the same. It's just
Mm,
different jobs. If you think about it. And my legacy, hopefully, will be to always leave a positive message, you know, so people can rely to, and when people go to my concerts, they see Pablo Alejandro the same way. They probably can see me walking down the street tomorrow, and if they ask me for a picture, or they know, or they recognize me, or if they not, you know. But I always want to make sure that I get that across, exactly the way that I was taught to, from my parents. I'll always be
mm,
humbled, always be there when somebody needs me, and understand that all these people that sometimes even write to my Instagram, you know, they're fans the same way that I am fan of another artist, So always try to be true to myself as well.
very cool.
That's really great. Like really, Pablo. Uh, Thank you so much for spending this time with us. Like we really appreciate the heart passion, and elegance you bring to your music and the journey behind it. Really, thank you so
No, no,
much.
no, man. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Like I said, to me, this is Guinness Records. First time interview, India, in San Diego. To me, this is a blessing. You guys, yeah, for real. You guys are the first. I mean, the first. I had never been interviewed. And you know what's funny? I'm pretty sure you guys know Charu. That's how you pronounce her name.
Yeah,
Charu. She's a
Charu. Yeah,
pianist.
yeah,
Okay. I got
yeah,
to meet her
yeah,
in
yeah. I
person,
know.
of course. When I went to LA, and we were talking through WhatsApp the other day, and I said to Charu, you might think this is crazy, but what if I bring bachata to India? And she's like, you know what? I heard your type of music before. I heard that, and I said, listen, I know you're traveling, I'm traveling. Whenever we can connect and talk for 5 minutes, let's go crazy. Let's do something in India. She was like, I love that idea. So yeah, so hopefully to get connected with her again. I know she's all over the world
That's
traveling, and she's such an amazing person. Oh my god, oh my god, yeah.
Very cool. Thanks so much. We, like I said earlier, like we said, like, the pleasure is all ours to have you. And this conversation, is a reminder that music can cross borders, but still remain deeply rooted in who we are, So thank you so much again. Thank you.
yeah,
No, thank you
really.
guys. Anything you need, I'm
And
always around the corner.
Mhm.
oh, no, no. And to everyone listening, thank you for being here with us. If this resonated with you, share it with someone. And do check out Pablo Alejandro's music on Spotify, Apple Music. Go on his Instagram. He is so kind and hearted person. If you message him something, he will surely reply you in a good way. Go talk with him. And don't forget to follow him. And we will see you in the next episode of Artist Conversation.
Yep. Yep. Thanks, everyone.